And today we want to begin with an important story coming out of Tennessee. Republicans there are looking to solidify their advantage in Congress as Tennessee voters are going to be headed to the polls tomorrow for a special election that has reliably been very conservative, solid ground. The GOP is aiming to keep control of a district that literally they've dominated for years. But it's shaping up to be a little bit closer than we probably anticipated. Joining me now is Washington Stand reporter Casey Harper. Casey, thank you for joining me. Let's start with this. I know this district and the former representative well. This has historically been a strong district. What's going on here that's making this a little bit closer potentially than many people anticipated?
Well, thanks, Jody. And you're right. It is shaping up to be a tough race for Democrats, but the whole nation's watching it as a potential bellwether for what could happen in next year's midterms. So Tennessee's 7th district, as you said, is usually solid Republican territory. And Trump-backed Republican Matt Van Epps is facing off against Democrat Afton Benn, a progressive lawmaker that some say is Tennessee's AOC. I don't think they mean that as a compliment. Now, both sides are bringing in big money with national attention, and Trump himself is putting his name on the line for Van Epps, while former Vice President Kamala Harris is hitting Nashville for Benn. So two big names on either side. We want to see the end of the killing and the death and the suffering, and I'm sure the Ukrainian side, I know they do as well. They want peace. But it's also about securing an end to the war that leaves Ukraine sovereign. Yeah, sorry about that clip there, but as I was saying, President Trump, he said in a Truth Social post that the Democratic candidate opposes Christians, backs gun control and open borders, and supports transgenderism, and warned voters not to underestimate the race, which, Democrats are just coming off those big wins a couple weeks ago. Republicans, they're closely watching and trying to protect their narrow majority, 219 to 213, while Democrats are aiming for an upset. Turnout could be the key here, Jody, especially since this is an off-cycle special election, which is happening tomorrow. So the result is going to have a real impact on the control of the House, Jody.
Yeah, it really will. And it is, as you just said, it's all about these special elections. In off years like this is expected to be a low turnout. And therein is an opportunity that the Democrats are hoping to take advantage of. So thank you, Casey, for keeping us up to speed on that special election tomorrow. If I can switch gears with you real quickly to Ukraine. We saw a little bit of a clip there. Maybe we'll get back to that. But there were some negotiations held in Miami yesterday, in fact, between the U.S. and Ukrainian officials. What can you tell us about those talks?
Yeah, Jody, American and Ukrainian officials held what they described as productive talks on Sunday. They're all focused on revising that 28-point peace plan that the U.S. put forward to help end the war in Ukraine. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he expressed some cautious optimism, saying progress has been made, but there's more work to be done. We want to see the end of the killing and the death and the suffering, and I'm sure the Ukrainian side, I know they do as well. They want peace. But it's also about securing an end to the war that leaves Ukraine sovereign and independent and with an opportunity at real prosperity. There it is, even better the second time. But these talks, held in Florida, were led by Ukraine's new chief negotiator, Rustem Umerov, following the resignation of the previous team leader amid a corruption scandal. Now, Ukraine and its allies are pushing back against parts of the plan that initially seemed to favor Russia, including giving up territory and limiting the size of Ukraine's military. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin tomorrow in Moscow, and Ukraine's President Zelensky is meeting with the French president in Paris to rally European support. Meanwhile, Russia continues its attacks across Ukraine, with at least 4 people killed and dozens more wounded on a missile strike in Ukraine just today, highlighting the ongoing casualties as negotiations move forward, Jody.
Wow. Well, Casey, before I let you go, I know I brought this up, kind of introducing some of the things we're going to be covering in the program, but after the shooting of National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C., the Trump administration has tightened some immigration rules. Can you kind of just tell us, Casey, how did it come to this? How did we get here?
Right. Well, President Trump, he said yesterday the U.S. could pause asylum admissions for an extended period, warning that it could be a long time before some nations are allowed asylum.
People from different countries that are not friendly to us and countries that are out of control themselves. countries like Somalia that have virtually no government, no military, no police. All they do is go around killing each other. Then they come into our country and tell us how to run our country. We don't want them.
So those strong comments from the president come after an Afghan immigrant who was granted asylum under the Trump administration allegedly ambushed National Guard members in Washington, D.C., killing one and critically wounding another. Now, authorities say the suspect was not radicalized until after arriving in the U.S. But in response, the Trump administration has frozen processing for all asylum applications and signaled it's time for a broader clampdown on illegal immigration, Jody.
Casey, as always, thank you so much for getting us kicked off and keeping us up to speed on some of the highlights that are taking place in the news. I'm sure we'll be talking to you a little bit later, but thank you for joining me now.
Thanks.